Welcome to The Joy Hour Show. So excited today to be in the studio and capture a story of a life from a friend of mine today. Each one of us have a story, and a lot of times those stories come with thoughts of, should I ever share this? What should I do with this? You know, you all listening here, you've been through something, and I encourage you to find an opportunity, hear God's voice on how he wants you to share. But I promise you, there's freedom in sharing the stories of our lives, and all with the purpose of encouraging others to be bold and to go ahead and be real. So again, this is what we do. We have real talk about life. And so today, going to capture as much as we can in 45 minutes or so here. Kameron, thank you for being in the studio today. Excited to hear your story to encourage and bless others today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's got a great background here today, a city that I spent quite a bit of my life in, actually all of my life until recently. Got the Space Needle there and Mount Rainier. So thank you to the team for getting this all set up today. Let's start just briefly. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? And jump into your story.
Yeah, no, I was born in Houston.
Okay.
And as far as growing up is concerned, I grew up overseas. I was a missionary kid. Grew up in Argentina. I was there for about 15, 16 years. Then I moved to El Salvador, and I was there for 2 years. Went to the United States, did seminary, Bible school, and then became a missionary in my own right. So I've lived the vast majority of my life overseas.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's been fun.
What an experience. And, you know, I think about that when I meet with people, and just, you know, the conversation flows so much easier, I find, when one of the first questions is, where were you born, or where did you grow up? And then it might dive into, you know, what hobbies or something. But a lot of the world, they'll start conversations with, what do you do for work?
Right.
You know, and it's like, well, is that really where we're going with this conversation? So, you know, I like to learn about people just from the beginning as much as I can. So take us through just the first few steps of growing up in the mission field, and how that developed into your choices once you became this thing called adulting, and how that played into where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, born in Houston, I was on the missions field by, you know, a little over a year old. When I first went to Argentina, my parents, veteran missionaries, I mean, they're still on the missions field to this day. And I think it's really important to note, as far as context is concerned, like, from a missionary perspective, like, outside of being a minister, you're already in a glass box when you're a minister or in a minister's home. A missionary just elevates that, because not only you're in a glass box, but it's just ever changing. You just have to be very flexible. You're constantly at the mercies of changing schedules and all kinds of things. And so, to paint the picture, growing up overseas, my dad was the president of the work in Argentina. He was also the president of the Bible school in Argentina. So he stayed busy. So a lot of my upbringing, a lot of my growing up experiences going to different churches, there was hardly a Sunday where I would be able to go to the same church back to back. And so it was constantly, I mean, you know, you think of any top executive or any person that's in leadership within ministry, you're constantly visiting different churches. That's what my life was. Just constantly going from this church to that church, and being overseas for 4 years, and then coming back to the United States and trying to raise up the funds so that you could go back again for another 4 years. And same concept while you're here in the States. You're going from church to church to church, and you're constantly saying goodbye, making new friends, and constantly trying to adapt to an ever-changing environment. And so that was a lot of my upbringing, was just trying to figure out how to fit in whichever environment that I could be. Trying to make friends, trying to make the best of every moment. So a lot of familiarity with, obviously, ministry and missions. As I said before, grew up in Argentina. I was there until I was about 15, 16 years old. Then my parents made the decision. We moved to El Salvador. My dad was the president of the Bible school there. Same thing, still traveling to a variety of different churches and ministering. I finished my high school there, and then I actually went to Indiana Bible College.
Okay.
And I went through Indiana Bible College, and then during the course of my time at Indiana Bible College, I actually ended up getting married, and decided shortly thereafter that the missions field was for us, and we went to Spain, and we were missionaries there for about 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of people will talk about Bible colleges with a little bit of a reference there on getting married. Not everybody does, but a lot of people do.
Yeah.
At the same time as going for education and ministry, and brought you together in that. And walk us through those 3 years.
Yeah. So what's funny, I guess I'll go back. I actually met my then wife while she came to El Salvador on a missions trip. And so I didn't know it at the time, but she actually ended up deciding to go to Indiana Bible College, and we continued conversation after that. Like, it was a year afterwards that we got reconnected. And we firmly believed, and we were very much so called to the missions field. And obviously with my parents already being in Spain, that was a wonderful and natural transition for us, especially me, because, again, culture, it changes all the time for me. So whenever I can find some place that's similar in culture, that was just incredible. So, growing up in Argentina, there's actually a huge European influence that you don't know about until you actually go out and visit Europe. And so Spain, obviously my parents talked to me about it, and we felt the burden, we felt the call, and we became missionaries. We were approved in 2017 to be Amers, which was like the first level, low on the totem pole. And we went to Spain, and we were there for 3 years, just living at the church, doing everything for the church. And my experience, these are a little bit of the responsibilities that I was doing, but even though I was low on the totem pole, my dad, obviously a veteran missionary, and he knew my capabilities. And obviously I had the language. Obviously I speak Spanish fluently. And so there was a lot of opportunities that came my way just by virtue of, already having that established connection and that established trust between my father and myself. And so I became the pastor of the English church. So there was a large Spanish church, there was a Romanian church at the time, and there was an English church. So Sundays were massively busy.
Right.
We had 2 services just for the Spanish congregation on Sunday. Then there was the Romanian service, and there was the English service. And so it was something that it would take a lot of time. And so there was, I was part of the pastoral council, part of the financial board, one of the creative guys, if not the creative guy for the national work. I worked very closely with the president of the work there at the time and the board. My dad was obviously an honorary member of the board as well. And so I was a teacher in the Bible school, worked in the national offices. I helped coordinate the general conference, if you will, for the nation of Spain.
Yeah.
So I was involved. I was heavily involved. But I think that's the key, is that, and here's where, I guess the problem occurs.
Yeah.
I was heavily involved.
Right.
My wife at the time, it was always work, just to learn the culture and learn the language, and being outside of an environment where you're comfortable, that was very, very difficult for her. And so while I'm working, I'm pouring myself out, and I'm doing all of these things, and I was teaching Bible school teaching in the Bible school, and I was also the director of small groups. So there was like 3 nucleus that ran the church. I was the director of one of them. I was in charge of another one afterwards that encapsulated the music department, the creative team, all of the social media, like all of those things fell under my purview. So I had a lot of responsibility, heavy responsibility, but my wife at the time didn't have a lot of the responsibility. And her abilities, it's not that she lacked any abilities, but she lacked feeling that purpose.
Yeah.
And ended up eating away at her pretty good.
Which I know that's kind of the meat of what we're getting into here on your story, but I'm sure the listeners out there are not fully ready for what's coming next. But each of us, again, have been through different seasons of life, and choices are made by all of us. Men, women, we all make choices. But it sounds like in this case, very busy. And I'll let you go ahead and take it. I've heard this story briefly, but how did it unfold?
Yeah, so we all remember 2020 and COVID. Madrid, where we were currently living, they were actually one of the most impacted cities in the world. I think Italy was first, and in the heart of Madrid, where we were, that was like the second most heavily affected in the entire world. So obviously you're going stir crazy, and we were trying to adapt because although the world has shut down, that doesn't necessarily mean that the work of the church stopped. And so there was like this brief moment when we got locked in and we were on lockdown. My parents were actually in the States on deputation, just raising funds and what have you. There was a moment in time where it was just a little bit of okay, we can play board games for a little bit, but then it was immediate. Again, the responsibility fell on me. I was happy to do it, but to get that online platform up and running so that people could be a part of the church, albeit virtually. And so coming up with that solution, and I dove head first. And so I did everything that I possibly could to make that happen. And in the process of my wife and I, still pastoring the English church and still having all of these things and responsibilities and still going stir crazy, my wife started playing a game on her phone. And she started developing a relationship unbeknownst to me with someone in the United States. And for months, they would just text and whatever. I didn't know how truly in-depth this was, but I started noticing patterns that she was on her phone, like continuously investing money. We had a budget, like we're going to give a certain amount of money every month that like you can just use to spend on whatever you want. Whereas before it would have been, maybe clothes or whatever the case might be. It was like always going to this game from her behalf. And so I remember very specifically there was a message from somebody that was sent to her. It was a guy, and it was just a funny little video that was sent on Instagram. And I confronted her about it, and I was like, this is how affairs happen. This is how it starts, is just sending each other funny little videos. Like, you've got to be absolutely careful. Looking back on it now, like, I could see the fear in her eyes at that moment because she thought, I'm caught. But I didn't know. I addressed the problem without actually calling it out and trying to fix it. So time goes by. The restrictions are lifted. We are able to get back into our own little apartment home. And things are somewhat getting better to a certain degree, but still, just life was sucked out of her from a reality perspective, and everything was put into this game. And I remember like just constantly trying to, I bought a Wii, just to try to get involved with playing games and so we could do something together. But still I was consistently pouring myself into my work and in the ministry. And she was consistently retreating. And eventually she decided, hey, let's start trying to have a kid. And we were coming up on our 4-year anniversary. And so we decided we were going to start trying to have a kid. And shortly thereafter, we had a miscarriage. And so I had found out that, we were pregnant. I was extremely excited. And then, shortly thereafter, the miscarriage. And I remember vividly, like, we went to the doctor to check and see what was going on because she woke up in that morning and she was bleeding, not doing well. We went to the doctor, and they said that there was no sign of life. There was nothing there. Came back to our home, our little apartment, and I vividly remember seeing, how it affected her at that moment in time. And then I just went back to work. We lived at the church office. I mean, we were right above it. And I was like, I don't know what to do. So I just went back to work. And I remember, like, my parents weren't in the office that day. And my parents didn't even know that we were pregnant. It was that early on. And so I went into my dad's office and I just called him. And I was like, Dad, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say other than we were pregnant and we just lost the baby today. And I'm just crying and weeping. So I didn't know how to deal. I just suppressed it. We were talking about that earlier. Yeah. Everybody just always suppresses it, make it go away. So again, I found out later that was like her last ditch effort of trying to salvage the relationship, or at least so I thought. She told me that she wanted to go back home and be with her mom. And keep in mind, like, over the period of 3 years, like, she didn't really get to see her family except for one time. And she was very close and tight with her family. And not, being immersed in a different culture, being immersed in different languages and what have you, it's difficult, as it is. But she came from a very small town. Things were very, very different. She didn't even know when she went to Bible school that there was a tenor and soprano part and an alto part, like just stuff like that. And so she just told me, I just want to go be with my mom. Like, all right. So I bought the ticket. We hung out with my parents for a little bit. And I mean, I didn't really get approval or anything. I was just like, just go be with your mom. I had no idea. And really hard conversations that I had with my parents at the table. Like, don't let your suffering go in vain. Like, make it count. Stuff like that. It was just really heavy. And I find out after the fact that, like, and I really noticed, like, she was really, really pulling away. And I tried confronting her about it. I tried talking to her about it. And every time I would try to talk to her about it, she would just continue to retreat and didn't want to say anything. I vividly remember, like, the night before she left, I remember asking her, are we ever going to come back? Because I love what I do. And of course, she lied to me, yeah, we'll come back. And I didn't know she'd already bought a plane ticket to go see this guy. So she goes back to the United States. She's with her mom. And I find out on a Sunday evening, you can't come back. I'm having second thoughts. You can't come back to the States because I've already bought a ticket. Immediately, it was just like tears. It was raw emotion. It was the most hurt I have ever been in my life. And it was just a lot of questions. Immediately I want to go. I want to fix it. I want to be there. And it was, no, you can't. I've already bought the ticket. I've already made up my mind. Like, I'm not going back. And at the time, it was just me and my dad in Spain. And I'm finding out that my marriage is over while my wife is in the States. My life as I know it has just been rocked, and I can't do anything about it. I'm a world away. And so I remember talking with my dad, and it was just me and my dad, and we were both so much in pain, so much hurt. There was so much anger even that happened at that time. And I made the decision to come back to the United States December 1st, 2020. And my plan at the time was, when she comes back to Arkansas, she was in Pennsylvania or wherever it was, when she comes back, then I'll be there at the airport to receive her, and we'll work this out. Well, that didn't work. She ended up calling me, and she told me, while I was in the States and just trying to figure things out, I mean, I was in a dark space, desperately grasping at straws, trying to do anything and everything. God, give me a sign, give me peace, give me anything, and just nervous mess and anxiety ridden. And I remember getting the phone call and hearing the words, "Kameron, I'm not coming back home. This is my home." And hearing hurtful things like, we had talked about it for years. Love isn't just an emotion. Love is a choice. And I would always tell her, I choose to love you. And she, at that moment in time, I remember, man, I just, like a knife in the chest, if love is a choice, I choose not to love you. Like stuff like that, it just rips your heart out. And I'll never forget, I'm in Arkansas, and I had just got off the phone with my then wife hearing these things. And my mom calls me because she was in the States at the time. And she was like, "Kameron, I felt that I needed to call you." And I'm sitting there in a borrowed vehicle in the Walmart parking lot, bawling my eyes out. And I'm screaming at my mom saying, "Why doesn't she love me? Why doesn't she love me?" And, you think you're doing everything right. You're trying to give yourself to ministry and in missions and doing all of the things. And I forgot my first responsibility, which was my family. I knew that. Now, I can't make an excuse for her, but I contributed, and I recognized it. So, ultimately ended up going to Conroe and trying to find a place where I could some way, somehow start putting my life back together. So, that was all the bad.
Amazing. And the part that I just hear the most there is that both people made choices.
Yeah.
And for you to, I guess you could say, own up to that is big. Yeah. There's a lot of people that don't make it through marriage and divorce, but yet one of them is always saying it was the other person, 100%. And it's just the different stories of life as far as marriage is either staying together or not staying together, and then what it looks like for the rest of those people's lives. I believe that I see healing that's happened in your life. That's why you're able to sit here and share. A lot of people never share, and they bottle it up and sweep it under the rug, and I believe that's why struggles continue. And a lot of times that's why relapses happen. But I hope and pray that she's doing good wherever she's at and whatever's going on, and I'm excited to hear the next chapters of your story. But what a chapter or two or three right there with losing a child and then losing a wife and questioning, what I guess your role in the whole situation, was and how to learn from that. And I believe from what I know of you that you have taken those situations and you've learned from them. And now I'll turn it back to you on where are you at now, or take us through those next couple of years.
Yeah. It actually gets worse before it gets better.
Okay. This is stuff I don't know yet.
So that's all 2021. My life falls apart. So again, as a missionary, you sell everything. You're just completely sold out, which is what we were at the time. And so, I had a vehicle, I had, furniture, I had all kinds of stuff that was there in Spain. My goal was to be completely sold out in Spain, and that was my life. Well, 2021 happens. Obviously, my wife decides that she wants to go chase this relationship with this guy that she met online, and it was shortly thereafter. It was within the same year. The first generation missionary. So I'm third generation missionary. My papa actually passed away that year on 2021. Yeah. So it was I lost a kid, my wife left me, I don't have a job, my papa died, first generation missionary, what is going on right now? My life is completely in shambles. And I remember the very first job that I had, and shout out to my church, Conroe Church, and my family that were able to help me get a job and get a place to stay and get a car. And, I didn't have anything. I was back in the States, I had 2 suitcases to my name, and that was it. So they helped me get a job, and the very first job that I got was actually working at a funeral home. So I know, very depressing, right?
Wow.
But yeah, they were able to help me get a job. And during that time, I think the best place where I could find healing was at church. And again, I have to give credit to my pastor. I have to give credit to my family, Pastor Trent, Pastor Smith, there at Conroe Church. They not only saw me in a place of brokenness, but gave me a place to serve. And I could have very easily, said, forget all of this. I'm out. I'm done. I'm just going to do something else. I'm not going to be in church anymore, whatever. And I don't think anybody would have necessarily blamed me. But not only being able to come to a place where I could come to church and realizing, obviously, I need God's help. I can't do this by myself. And then having a place where I could serve. They gave me that opportunity. And not to say that I've done everything right. I mean, I've made mistakes all along the way. We're human.
Right.
But finding that place where I could once again have renewed purpose for my life. Although it looked different, I'm not teaching in the Bible school, and I'm not, creating graphics for the national work, or I'm not working with the national work and helping shape a country. But I started to see the value of a soul. And I began to see that, it doesn't matter whether I'm doing things on a large scale or if I'm doing things on a small scale. There is a biblical definition for success. And that's when one sinner comes to a place of repentance and all of heaven rejoices.
Right.
And I began to see that. And, obviously still at the same time, I'm still struggling with, am I going to go back to the missions field? Is this something that I'm going to do? I remember having conversations with my dad. It was who's the next one going to look like? What's she going to look like? And I'm sitting there thinking, I was intimate with a woman for 4 years of my life, and I can't even think about possibly sharing a bed or sharing a conversation with a person of the opposite sex, let alone going from intimate relationship to what's your favorite color? There was no way that I could think about that. It was so far removed from my mind. And I'm not going to say that, it just wasn't a thought. It was just I'm not ready for this at all. There's just no way. I have to have healing. So between finding healing from an emotional perspective and then trying to figure out what's the time frame to go back to the missions field, because that's what my thought process was. I had to present myself to the Global Missions Board, because that's where I had my license at the time. I had to present my case, and they were very kind to me. They knew the details. Thankfully, I was able to receive counseling from pastors, and they witnessed it. I have, they created letters and all kinds of stuff. They were able to see and walk me through that entire process. But it wasn't easy. And as I'm facing this continuous, okay, when's a good time to come back? When's a good time to go back to, Spain? And, all the while my dad's, you got to start preparing yourself. Let's get more into the mentality, if you do this, then you're going to be a little bit more rooted where you are. And if you're going to come back to Spain, you can't have that. And I don't know why, but I just never felt at peace. I never did. I wrestled with it. I struggled with it for so long. And I was trying to figure out, what in the world am I going to do? Missions is all I've ever known. That's who I am. It's my identity. And I wrapped myself again. People wrap themselves and their identity in their job and their career, which is, why I think people say, well, what do you do for a living? Yeah. Because that's everything that they are. And missions it absolutely was everything that I identified with. But I just never felt at peace. I never felt that release. Well, come to find out, while I was working at the funeral home, I actually ended up meeting my now wife. Okay. The funeral home was actually, they had a service for her grandmother. And
what a place to meet.
I know, right? Such a wonderful time. They created a service for her grandmother who had just passed. Okay. And we had recognized each other. We knew each other. But we joke about it all the time now, because her brother actually confronted her and said, hey, so I heard that you were flirting with Kameron at, Grandma's funeral. And she was like, who does he think he is? And then proceeded to hate me for the next 6 months, even though all I said to her brother-in-law was, Katie's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's crazy how things work out and how God works.
Yeah.
Because for years, I prayed that I wanted to be able to have a home. You know, I talked about it at the very beginning, that instability, or not really instability, but just constantly having to move, constantly, you know, I've never been in a place for longer than 4 or 5 years at a time. And that's still true to this day. Like, I've never been rooted in a place for a long period of time. And so I always craved that level of stability. I always craved to have a home. I always, deep down, I was like, please, God. I mean, I'd prayed that for years. And, you know, it was a slow and grueling process. It took a lot of time. Eventually, my now wife, Katie, came around and thought that I was somewhat funny.
Yeah.
And we actually started talking, and I told her up front, you know, hey, I've been through her before. If we're going to start talking, like, either this is time invested or it's time wasted, and you get to decide which one it is. And we quickly found out that this truly was the will of God. I can't tell you how many prayers that were answered just from the initial. Like, I would write down prayers. I would pray in my office at the time. I would read my Bible. I would say, God, if this is truly what you want, then this needs to happen. And I mean, like, immediately happen exactly how I would pray about it. And so there was so much peace and so much confirmation that was just like, oh, this is why God didn't want me to go back to the missions field just yet. He had something in store for me. So now, fast forward to almost 3 years being married, got one kid, one on the way, and we're in a house.
Praise God.
So it's amazing to me how God has been able to take my brokenness and shape it into something so much better than I ever thought it could be. And that's truly a testament, not only about my brokenness, but just so much about God's grace and his faithfulness to me.
Right. Well, and you held to him through all of it. I'm sure you had your moments.
Oh, yeah.
But you held to him as you learned and as life unfolded. If a listener right now is listening to this and this is touching your heart, or you know somebody that this would help, please share it. Of course, it gets out there because of all of you sharing it. But this is, again, real talk about life and working through challenges. What a beautiful story. There's brokenness, there's pain, but you've turned it into a purpose. And you now are ministering to people through not just sitting here, but through pastoring and helping people. I know a little bit about what you're currently doing, your wife and you, in ministry. Also, you have a full-time job that's busy. But one thought going through my mind here is busyness. And I've said it pretty often is, you know, the enemy's approach to my life for years was sin, blatant, you know, drugs and alcohol and all of that, you know, doing things that I knew were wrong. But I feel like there's another tactic that he uses, and that's busyness. And be careful if you get too busy in anything in life not to have time for him.
Yeah.
And not to have time for family. And this is a constant struggle. I mean, my wife and I just last night had another discussion about how I might be a little bit out of balance right now with not truly listening and being involved in her life like I think I am, and I tell myself I am. So, guys, I believe this is a common challenge for us to put our focus and our time into our family at the same time as ministry and the same time as our job, paying our bills. How can you speak to that as far as what you do, you know, throughout the week to make sure you don't get so focused on ministry that you've lost touch with your wonderful wife and your child? And what do you do? What would you advise?
Yeah. I was telling you this morning, James Clear, I think, said it best. You don't rise to the level of your goals, but you fall to the level of your systems. And without systems in place, your life can get pretty disorganized very quickly. Because you're right, there is a lot of busyness involved in life. Yeah. And it's about making sure that you can prioritize the things that deserve priority. And if you don't have that system of prioritization, then everything can get out of balance. So absolutely. You were actually talking in a previous podcast about going to the gym. One of the things that my pastor and I will do, we'll go to the gym, try to go to the gym by about 5:30, 6 o'clock every morning, and just start the day and go from there. I usually have meetings. Very successful people actually have blocks, but I've found that those early morning hours that's me time.
Yeah.
That's not family time, that's me and God time. And so I've been able to block that portion of time out where I don't have a screaming, crying kid, or I don't have all of the distractions with life. It's just a time where it's me and God. And so, on the way to the gym, in the shower, whatever the case might be, I'm not doing this. I'll be honest, I'm not doing this whole travailing and just, all of this stuff, but I'll be listening to, I know this sounds super weird, but I'll be listening to worship music in the gym, and that actually gets me motivated.
Yeah.
Like, it really does. And I've tried to listen to different things, and it's just not the same.
Yeah.
I know that sounds different, but truly that has helped. So having that portion where I'm taking care of my relationship with God first, then again, having intentionality with work-life balance.
Yeah.
And it's not perfect, but rather than saying, well, I'm a failure, if you've got a system in place, then you can tweak the system if it's not producing the outcome that you want.
Yeah.
It was actually told to me by my uncle that everybody has a system either by default or by design. And every system is designed to accomplish or give you the output based upon those parameters. So if you don't like the result, then it's probably time that you change the system so that you can get the desired outcome, the desired result. So I'm very systematic in my approach to my job, very systematic in trying to be, because my wife craves intentionality with time. She just wants time. She wants presence. And some of the best times that we have is just laying in bed having a conversation. Like, no phones, no nothing, let's just lay in bed and talk. Like, that's us time. And then obviously during the day, it's us as a family time. And I haven't done the best, I'll be honest, I haven't done the best at being very intentional, and this night is going to be date night. But we try to make sure, or I'm trying to make sure that whether it be buying flowers, whether it be let's go on a date, let's have somebody take care of our son, let's do something, like, I think there has to be intentionality and there has to be a system to where there can be a healthy balance and you can prioritize the things that mean the most to you. I think that's what makes a very healthy life.
So good. It ties in with something a friend of mine said yesterday. If you look at your calendar and your checkbook, I can tell you your priorities.
Yeah, exactly.
If I see your calendar and your checkbook. So I think we need to do that internal audit on our time and our budget, and we make time for things that matter. And so I know in my life I've done the early morning exercise and I haven't. I've been through seasons, but every time I do, it's really changed my entire day for the better. But it's getting up early, which means going to bed early. For me, I don't go to bed at 1 and get up at 4. I don't operate on 3 hours of sleep. But I do encourage people to just tweak things as far as your systems, and challenge you to really start your morning out with the Word of God, with exercise. In that book you referenced, James Clear there, Atomic Habits. A friend of mine years ago said, the Bible and Atomic Habits. And then I'll give you other books after that. And of course, I already knew about the Bible, but I'd never heard of Atomic Habits. And so I read that, and it just sunk in that, I used to just complicate things so much. Like, my life's just a mess and I don't even know where to start. And it talks a lot about just that little 1% tweak. If you haven't done a push-up in a while, just do 1. And then eventually do 2, Get up an extra 5 minutes earlier. But the part about it I'm about to reference here just really stuck is the habit stacking. And, when I exercise, a lot of times it's by myself and it's earbuds and it's Bible or podcast or positive music. And so just so much to that. You know, a lot of times through my life, I would start out with emails and text and social media being the priority. But when you start out with good music, the Word of God, exercise, it can completely change the rest of the day.
Absolutely.
We're all given 24 hours. We're all given 168 a week. And it's how do we use those, but not getting, out of whack, out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a constant struggle. I wish I could say I finally just nailed it and everything's, great. But I think these conversations challenge me and hopefully challenge you to really look at your schedule, look at your calendar, and look at your expenses and where you spend your finances. We've got just about 3 more minutes here to wrap up. And thank you so much for capturing your story, a glimpse of it here.
Thank you.
Any words of advice for, I want to say young married people?
Sure.
I'm at 22 years now of marriage. It sometimes gets easier and sometimes it gets harder. But what, from your perspective, would you advise on a healthy marriage and also a ministry and also career? Just how to do that.
No, and thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to share my story. As far as advice is concerned for young married couples, keep the main thing the main thing. Mm-hmm. You've got to keep God first. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just 110%. Like the second that you stop choosing God first, everything else falls out of what you said, falls out of whack. Mm-hmm. And I know that that's just such a overstated and oversimplification, but I think what you just said is very key. A lot of times we overcomplicate things. Mm-hmm. We get too busy with work or we get too busy with whatever. I struggle even to this day with, I've got to stop. Like it's 5:30 and I need to stop. Like they're not paying me overtime. You know, I just need to stop. And my wife has been very intentional as of late, like recently, like, hey, it's 5:30. Stop. Spend time with your family. And just having that priority. Don't get so involved with the busyness of life or even the busyness of church. Mm-hmm. It's still busyness. Don't forget to fall in love with your wife every day. Don't forget to grow together. You're going to grow, whether you grow together or grow apart. That's your choice. And so making those choices every single day, I want to grow together. I don't want to grow apart. And it just makes sure that I'm involved as much as I possibly can with my family, with my work balance and life balance and what have you. So that's what I would say.
I like that. You're going to grow either way. Same thing with our walk with God. Yep. You know, so many times in my life, I didn't value this book.
Yeah.
And now it's like, even if I just read one verse, just for, what's it take? 2 seconds. That there, every so often throughout the day can be just so powerful. But the value and the importance of the Bible is just so important. I love how you put that, and finally, a couple years ago, I was able to tell my wife, I love you, but not more than God.
Yeah.
And I think for so many years throughout my early part of my marriage, I kind of put her and even our marriage on this pedestal, like it was the number one. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know where this was because I didn't touch it very often. So hope this helps all of you that are listening. Share it again. You never know who might be inspired, encouraged by this. This is about what God is doing in all of our lives. And I encourage you to speak up, speak out, and have real talk in life. Again, Kameron Burgess, thank you for being in here today.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right. God bless y'all.